Namaste, many blessings. This is Verdelus from Divine Timing Coaching and sharing with you today from the beautiful, magical island of Crete in Greece. Finishing up our 13-day alchemical pilgrimage I've been facilitating here through the sacred sites where I got this beautiful shirt of the philosophers in Delphi and the wonderful oracle that we visited. Amazing places that hold such deep energy of wisdom and the traditions of prophecy, magic, medicine, like the rites of Eleusis. We went to this beautiful site there, as well as the Asclepion, the ancient sanctuaries of healing. Today I want to report about the seas, Pisces, Poseidon, the realm of Neptune. This is the full moon, but it's not just any full moon. We have a lot going on in the sky with Venus and Mars in each other's signs, but in a very awkward dance, not sure quite how to communicate with each other. It's a very intense time for relationships. It may be a relation shift for a lot of us. So what's happening with all of this as we also prepare for a big Mercury retrograde coming in this week? First, we want to celebrate the full moon in Pisces, and it's at the 28th degree of Pisces. It's almost in Aries, but it's about 7 degrees away from Neptune. So we're still feeling almost like a double Pisces energy. We're going to be extra sensitive with this full moon. And that can be so beautiful for absorbing the creative energies of the divine imagination. This can be one of the most unifying full moons of the year, usually, especially with Neptune involved, where we can dissolve our boundaries and really open our hearts to the divine heart, to the cosmic heart. In Tantra, it's called Hridaya. It's the great heart that beats through each one of us. It's the heart that gives our lungs the breath to be breathed. It's a time where we want to feel ourselves connected with nature. If we can be in the seas or the oceans or hiking in nature and really feel ourselves at one with all of life. We can also feel that through channeling our arts, through music, through dance, through poetry, through painting. This can be a very visionary full moon, a great time to do shamanic work, ceremonial work. But it can also be a time where, if we have been in a lot of struggle, which is a big potential with where Venus has been in Scorpio, we could want to check out, we could want to escape one of the shadows of Neptune and of Pisces. Trying to transcend what's happening instead of embrace all of it. In Shaiva Tantra, the lineage that I'm very connected with, we realize that we can't push anything away because in the oneness, it's one. Everything is part of consciousness. Everything is pervaded by Shiva. The dance of Shakti, the goddess, is moving and undulating in every moment, and that's the nature of impermanence. That's the nature of change. And it's like we're surfing on the seas or the oceans. The tide is never really the same. But we know there's going to be that inhale and that exhale, right? And so we have to be careful during this full moon to not try to transcend or escape from what's happening and instead embrace it into our hearts. The big challenge for us right now is around the god and goddess, Venus and Mars. Venus is in Scorpio. Mars is in Libra. We call this a mutual reception because they're in each other's signs, which can mean they can empower each other, they can hear each other, and yet each one of them, it's like they're speaking a language. I'm in Greece, and I can't understand Greek, but maybe I can communicate in a different way because this language of Mars in Libra, Venus' sign, and Venus in Scorpio, Mars' sign, it's like they can't really hear each other. Yeah? Why is this? Because these are signs that are what we call exile or detriment for these planets. So imagine the god and goddess are in exile. That can bode very challenging for all of our personal relationships, even some of our colleague relationships, professional relationships, the intimate bonds in our life. Venus is in Mars' home, the sign of Scorpio. Traditionally, Mars ruled Scorpio. Now, Pluto has affinity with Scorpio. The intensity of Pluto, the transformative potential of Pluto is very connected to Scorpio. But Mars is the traditional ruler. So imagine that Venus is going to Mars's home. And you know what Venus wants, right? This is what we talk about with every planet has a natural desire nature to it, a natural affinity, what its real purpose is through our consciousness. And a planet is like a character inside of us, an intelligence inside of us. Venus wants beauty and harmony. She wants that sense of peace. And she likes order. She likes that dance, that synergy, right? And if you follow her pattern over 8 years, it forms that perfect pentagram star where she's rising, right? Venus can be tracked for millennia perfectly, whereas Mars, if you try to follow Mars's movement, it's very erratic and it's not exact. And that is a fundamental difference here. So Venus goes into Mars's home of Scorpio, and she's wanting that beauty and that harmony, that peace and that flow, to be in the zone in partnership. And what can she do in Mars's home of Scorpio? Mars offers her something like a scythe, a knife, a dagger. Mars is the god of war, right? That's what he's going to feed her for dinner, some kind of conflict or intensity. He's going to feed her something that she might not be hungry for at all, and that's the only food that she's going to get. So what kind of Scorpio food are we talking about? Well, usually there's energy that's being excavated from the unconscious in Scorpio. The goddess here is uncomfortable. She's irritable. There's something that feels not secure, right? And there's a shadow that must be embraced, danced with, merged with. And if we don't do that, then often it can be projected onto a partner. And this is where we have to be very careful with the big full moon happening with Neptune and Pisces, because Pisces is the sign that dissolves boundaries, and that can be very beautiful, but it can also be where we move into a field of projection, blame, guilt, or also idealization, right? That it should be like this, it could be like that, and then a huge disappointment or disillusionment on the other side of that. And that can be a big feeling right now when we're going through a lot of the testing and a lot of the question from Saturn, because Saturn has been, for the last 4 or 5 days, very close with Venus by square. And so when you think of Saturn, you think of those rings, right? You think of constriction, restriction, limitation. And a square is a tension, a conflict, a 90-degree angle. So Saturn comes in to restrict that feeling of peace, prevent that feeling of harmony, limit that feeling of beauty. So even though Venus might want more lovemaking and connection and intimacy as her nature, in Scorpio, she's having to process all of this raw energy. She can't find the peace. There's something dark, there's something hidden, there's something maybe manipulative going on, there's some shady energy, something secretive. And Saturn is also putting the brakes on the ability to open her heart all the way. There is a definite contrast here, right, to the potential of the full moon in Pisces with Neptune, wanting us to dissolve boundaries and merge with all fields of consciousness, and then this very intense, potentially dark, and rather restrictive energy of Venus square Saturn with the Scorpio placement. Now, there is also the feeling on the high side, on the positive potential of Venus-Saturn, where we hit a roadblock, we hit a contraction somewhere in our heart. And then what Saturn is asking us to do is magnify what's really going on and get very serious about it and very much mature what's happening. And all of us have been in relationships, right, where there's been, an issue, an argument. It's brought something to light that may have been in the darkness or may have been pushed to the side. This could be a positive Scorpio experience here. Bring the darkness into the light. And then the Saturn can say, okay, look, I wasn't aware of how much that was impacting you or the environment. Or I wasn't really seeing clearly, right? Saturn wants a very wants us to be very direct, very to the point, very grounded in our relationships, right? And that means that this can be a maturing cycle, right? So whatever's happening, there is an obstacle, there is a challenge, there is a block, there is a structure that's being shaken. And it's all setting the stage for this next week, because Venus is going to oppose Uranus the entire week into next weekend. Uranus is at 14 Taurus. And so this transit is highlighting that big Saturn-Uranus square, which is with us for 2 years, 2021 and 2022, where we are trying to establish something that feels stable and secure, and Uranus keeps throwing those curveballs, the waves of chaos into our life. And that's what happens with Venus opposite Uranus. The goddess now needs a breakthrough. She needs freedom. And she needs independence. And she wants to be, she's in a revolution right now. So there can be, with both Saturn and Uranus back to back in relationship, real tests for resilience, for endurance, for stamina, for maturity, followed by moments of chaos and potential craziness and uncertainty and surprise and instability. And this can be a breakthrough. It can be an epiphany. It can be an awakening process when Venus opposes Uranus. It could be a whole new paradigm shift on how we relate. We may choose to open a relationship that's been more closed, or we may choose to close the relationship if it's been open, because that feels like it will establish more grounded support. We may realize through both of these transits that we are not in alignment, and we have to do, hopefully, a hand parting, a ritual separation, kind of in opposition to the hand fasting that was part of the pagan tradition for many millennia now, where we do a ritual parting. And this can be a time where a lot of relationships can realize that we are not going in the same direction, and we need to create the space for each individual to open into the next stage of their evolution, their soul's growth, their individuation. Right? That is this big, intense journey we're going through, a real alchemical process. It's interesting that in the Chinese calendar, we are in the Phoenix month, right? The Phoenix. Something is dying, something is being born. We don't quite know what it is yet. Saturn represents the contraction in the womb, before we're born, and all of that intense feeling of, I can't do this, I can't get out. There's a feeling of, constriction. And then Uranus is that moment we erupt into the new life. What is this world, right? And so our relationships need a completely new paradigm, an experimental approach. And we are with Mars also in Libra. And Mars, Mars rules Aries, the opposite sign. Aries is the warrior, Aries is the hunter, Aries is the adventurer. Mars loves to be there, going for what he wants, following his will, his passion, his desire. But in Libra, he has to turn to those around him, his partners, his support system, and realize he can't really do it on his own, and he can get very frustrated there. Right? And that frustration can create these blow-ups, these passive-aggressive types of energies, where what I want, I can't really go for, and I'm turning towards you because I'm in this sort of entanglement that Venus and Scorpio can bring. There's a lot of shared resources going on here. It can be a house, it can be work together, it can be the family, it can be a lot of things. And all of a sudden now, I need freedom. This doesn't feel like it has endurance, but we're very intimate and connected here. So, what can we do? We can try to find where, again, that innovative space can be, a new approach to relationship. And there is always a potential during the equinox, which is coming in on the September 22nd, when the sun moves into Libra, to find a place where we can play together. But we're about to enter Mercury Retrograde in Libra. So Mercury's in Venus's sign. And this, again, is going to emphasize that we are in the relationship portal right now. We are in the journey of how to be conscious and evolving ourselves, our partnerships, through conscious connection, intimacy, relating. And with Mercury squaring Pluto this whole week and through most of his retrograde, what will happen is that the mind, our communication, our thoughts are going to go very deep. And one of the potentials with Pluto is that we can excavate and pull back the veil to something that may have been hidden, something that we didn't want to see. You know, there's always a question I ask in Tantra circles, when we do kind of practice with each other, and it's that question of, the thing I don't want you to know about me is this, right? And so you can go to that place with Mercury square Pluto. You can go into those realms that feel like, whoa, this is very vulnerable. And what we want with Mercury square Pluto is transparency of communication in our relationships. We want diplomacy, but we want to go deep. We don't want to be on the surface. And sometimes Libra can play with that surface, but with this cycle, it's not going to be possible. We need to ask why. We need to go into the source of an issue, not just the surface challenge or tension that may be coming up. And we need to be careful because the words could be very wounding that we use when we get triggered. The Mercury squared to Pluto can be a very strong trigger. It can be very reactive, very volcanic, right? And it's usually towards the ones that we care the most about because we're in Libra. And so we need to be very careful here to not burn bridges with our communication, with our words, to be more careful, cautious, and yet true and authentic. This is a very delicate dance for all of us, right? So one of the invitations during this full moon for everyone is to open your heart to more compassion, to softening in those places where we can be very hard, where we can bring Saturn's scythe, which feels like it's cutting into our heart very strongly with this cycle, potentially, and really try to gain clarity on what your real values are, what it means to be, to achieve a feeling of freedom in relationship, whatever that means for you, authenticity, experimentation, growth, and yet something that you feel like you can speak truly to that is stable and solid and resilient and mature, and you can be real, and at the same time, open your heart into new possibilities, and know that we are in a portal that will be very strong through Mercury's retrograde, which is until mid-October, around the 18th of October, and that this is a time to really do the deep work of conscious relationship and to see each other as reflections of the divine in every moment. Like I said, that concept, it's called vyapti, that consciousness is all pervading, right? And even the things that we may not prefer, as the Stoic teachers say, these are the things that we need to acknowledge are still part of that field of consciousness, of oneness, and stay neutral to those things. I might not prefer this to happen, but this is what's happening, and I build my character through how I relate to that. There's a quote I want to leave you with today from Epictetus, who is one of the greatest of all the Stoic philosophers, a great mentor even to Marcus Aurelius through his works. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher as well. And this is important for Mercury retrograde and Pluto coming in, and this whole cycle that we're going through. And Epictetus says, be silent for the most part, or if you speak, say only what is necessary, and in a few words, talk, but rarely, if occasion calls you. But do not talk of the small things, the petty things. First, learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. Do not talk about men in blame or compliment or comparison. First, learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. It's really a powerful quote about how often we are speaking negativity or challenge or catastrophe into reality. That can be one of our biggest challenges right now. What do we create through our expression? And there's one last challenge for you, and it's the 21-day no complaint challenge, which is an exercise that you can do with a friend, a partner, family members, where you help each other not complain for 21 days. And this can be quite challenging. And you put a rubber band or something around one wrist, and as soon as a complaint comes out, then you switch wrists with that, and now you start the 21 days again, right? And they've done some research with this game, and they found that most people can't complete the 21-day challenge for 8 months. And this shows a kind of collective addiction to complaining, to criticizing, to speaking reality in a way that is very divisive. And the Tantrikas would say that this is always a space of untruth, because the field is always permeated with the same consciousness that is living in you and me and every being and everything. It's all pulsating as this oneness, just at different vibrations, different frequencies. So whenever we speak divisively, in a way, we're not really speaking truthfully. And can we shape our words and our communication in a way that invites deeper, more penetrating truth? That's the challenge during this time. Well wishes to everyone. Happy full moon. Namaste. Many blessings.